Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today I want to continue on talking about choices. Last episode talked about choices, kind of broke it down, talked about the garden, shared some great quotes from James Allen with you. But I want to start off kind of deep with you today, and my intent here is to be positive and to help you live a better life. But what I'm going to talk about is some hard stuff for some people to talk about, especially if they're experiencing it at the moment. That's not my intent, but it's to help you understand the power of our thoughts, which lead to our choices. So let's just get right into it. And today's talk is going to be really about self-talk. That's a choice based on your thoughts, and it's going to lead us into modeling. Are we living what we telling everybody else we believe and value? So it's going to be about self-talk and modeling overall. So one very powerful life and death choice is self-talk. Thoughts we have about ourselves or others. And self-talk can create a wide variety of unpleasant circumstances if those thoughts are negative. Self-talk is also far more destructive than what others say to us or about us. See, and I want to share a quote with you from Les Brown. I always loved this when I heard it, and I still see it from time to time, other people sharing it and talking about it. I share it when it fits. And Les always says, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. That's true. How does that relate today? Because when we talk about self-talk, every bit of that is your business. 100% of self-talk is your business, because that's you talking to you. You see, there's a big problem with self-talk. A couple of things. First, not really a problem. It's just a fact. We're always listening. Self-talk is nothing more than thoughts, right? I was talking about thoughts last episode. Talk about thought is the foundation of choice. That's why I still want to stick on it a little bit for this follow-up episode. And again, this is also information from my book, Defining Influence. If you want to go check it out and dive in deeper to all this stuff, great resource. I'm just sharing some of the nuggets with you about self-talk today and modeling. But see, we're always listening. That's not a bad thing, just a fact. We're always listening to ourselves, to our thoughts. We're always acknowledging our thoughts. But see, the other thing is, this is where the problem comes in. We tend to believe ourselves. Whether it's true or not, we think it's true. And think about this. This is where it gets a little deep, and it's intended to help you, not to take you down a sad path or a bad path, but it's just to help you see what I'm talking about. And I share about it in the book. But there are people taking their lives every day because of what they are saying to themselves. Not because of what others are saying to them, but what they are saying to themselves. That's what I'm talking about. It's how powerful self-talk is. Again, self-talk is just thoughts. When you're having a conversation with yourself, you're just having thoughts and acknowledging those thoughts. That's what self-talk is. Self-talk is the easy way to say it. Everybody knows what you're talking about. But people take their life because of the conversation they're having with themselves, sometimes not because of what others are saying to them. Sometimes people who take their lives are not talking to others at all. That's how powerful this self-talk can be. For these folks, their thoughts have brought them to the point of feeling worthless, helpless, and worst of all, because this is the root of it, is hopeless. So through self-talk, they have convinced themselves there's no reason to continue living. That's a sad state of being. There's a lot of people in that state. I've been there myself several times throughout my life. I ain't been there since I've been reading and studying these books for the past 17 years. But when I was younger, I thought about suicide multiple times. Obviously, never done it, never did it. For whatever reason, I would bet that almost everyone has thought about it. They may not admit it, and possibly everyone has thought about it. May not be almost, maybe everybody. That's why I want to share about the power of self-talk. You got to be careful when you talk to yourself because you always listen and you always think it's the truth. How many times have you ever told yourself something, you acted on that thought, and then you find out you were wrong? Everybody's done that multiple times at work and at home, all over the place. It's called paradigm. We see the world as we are, not as it is. So we tell ourselves a story. We have some self-talk about somebody or something, and we believe ourselves. So we act based on what we've been telling ourselves. We didn't do enough research. We didn't talk to enough people. We didn't ask enough questions. Sometimes we don't do any because we think we know everything. That's why you got to be careful. But when we talk about becoming hopeless, there's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. I share in my book. I want to share with you here in my book, Defining Influence. He says, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. That means we're going to experience disappointment throughout our lives. That's the human condition. That's what he's talking about. But that don't mean we have to be hopeless. But those people who take their lives because of that self-talk, these people no longer have hope. They've given up. And I want to tell you this, when we don't have hope, I mean, when we completely out of hope, meaning we ain't got no hope, right? We don't have hope. We must get it from others. I see a lot of people having that self-talk. They tell themselves don't go around nobody else. They don't know. They can't help. They don't care. Whatever self-talk they're telling themselves. But when we don't have hope, we must get around other people, be with them, and talk with them. Because this is what we got to do right here. We must borrow their belief in us. Others can and will lift us up if we get around the right people. And I'm telling you, if you grow and develop yourself, if you're proactive on learning how to deal with leading yourself well, you're going to get past all this kind of stuff. You ain't going to have to deal with this kind of stuff. Not you personally. You may have to help other people deal with it, but you'll be better positioned to help them deal with it. All those emotional things I used to have to deal with and struggle with myself. 17 years of reading and learning and applying. I don't have to deal with all that junk anymore. I don't deal with much sadness. I don't deal with much anger. I mean, almost none. It's just kind of, I don't have to deal with it. I lead myself in a way that I don't have to deal with all that stuff. It's still out there. And sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes I might get quiet. That's about the worst it gets. Whether I'm mad, sad, frustrated, upset about something, quiet's about worse as it gets. And I'm able to think my way through it fairly quick. And I move on and carry on. And a lot of people who don't know me and don't know how to lead themselves well, they may be thinking, Mac don't care. Yeah, I care. I just ain't going to act a fool about it. A lot of people think if they act a fool when something goes wrong and I don't act a fool, then I don't care because I ain't acting a fool like them. Well, I know better than them. I know how to think at a higher level. I don't have to live my life like that anymore. I used to. I stayed in the middle of drama all over the place. And that drama's still out there. I hope you ain't in the middle of it. If you are, you can escape it. takes one thought after another thought, leading to the right action to create the circumstances you want. And I want to tell you this, if the people you're around won't lift you up, you are around the wrong people. And a lot of people live in that world right there. They live in a world of people who don't want to lift them up. They want them to be lifted up. You stay right here with me and live this screwed up life I'm living. That's what most people who live in a screwed up life, they want everybody else to live a screwed up life with them. They'll invite you to live in their world all day long. And they're not even capable of taking you anywhere else because they can't take themselves somewhere else. So if the people you're around won't lift you up, you're around the wrong people. That's why I talk to you quite often. You're going to have to leave some people behind. The right people will always give you hope, and they'll always lift you up. That's why I read so much. That's one way I get around people I ain't never going to meet. But they can give me hope. They can lift me up. Especially back in the old days when I needed a lot of hope. I needed lifting up when I was still transitioning from the way I used to think to the way that I think today. It didn't happen. I didn't just go flip a light switch. You're not going to flip a light switch either. People on your team or in your family you share this type content with, it ain't going to happen for them either. The point of your thoughts creating your circumstances cannot be made clearer than that life and death example I used to illustrate that. That's why I took it to an extreme. Because people can understand a lot of times people who take their lives are taking it because of self-talk. They ain't got a friend that told them, hey, you need to take your life this afternoon. It'd be a good thing for you. I doubt anybody's got that kind of friend. It's because they told themselves that. Then they listened. Then they made a choice and they acted on those emotions and feelings that all that self-talk created. But that's an extreme example. But there are endless examples of self-talk, which again, which is thought being detrimental to your well-being. Doesn't mean you're going to take your life, but you can screw your life up. You can make a bad choice. You can cause somebody else some problems. You can cause yourself and somebody else some problems. You can end up in prison. You can end up in jail. Maybe not that. You end up terminated. You end up without a job. You end up working dead-end jobs because you don't have the character capable of getting you some top-end jobs. But you can change at any moment. You can hit the reset button and start living a different life. It may take a while for them circumstances to change. It took a while to get them bad as they might be for some people. We can choose our thoughts and change our thoughts. That's the self-talk you need to be dropping in your brain right there. And when we do, we change our habits and our circumstances. So I'm gonna drop a quote on you from the old philosopher Aristotle. Some old school talk way back yonder. It's so old I don't even know how old it is. But it's still just as real today as it was then. Aristotle had this to say. He said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So our thoughts form us, who we are, but we must first form our thoughts. Therefore, we decide who we are and the type of influence we have with others, one thought at a time. Like Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. You got to take action on the right thoughts, form the right habits. You'll achieve excellence. I see people do it all the time. I've met people. I've done it myself. I've been on both sides of the fence. That's why I know what it's like to be on both sides. Sometimes people who've only been on one side of the fence, whether it's the good side or the bad side, they can't comprehend what happens on the other side. Folks who've lived a good life with a good family and made good choices for whatever reason, been brought up well, had good character, and they can't comprehend what it's like on the other side. Folks who've had a rough life, who ain't never developed themselves, ain't had anybody to develop them. They've been making bad choices from the beginning. They just one bad thing after another to another to another. They can't comprehend that they could actually change, and they can't comprehend what's on the other side, the other life that other people can live. I've been on both sides. And I think people who've been on both sides of any situation are the best equipped to help anybody on either side deal with whatever they're dealing with relative to what the goal is in that moment. Right now, I'm talking about personal transformation. So what I'm saying here is I think people who have personally transformed themselves are much more capable of helping somebody transform who needs to be transformed, or helping someone who doesn't need to be transformed. They just lived a good life and they got good character, helping them understand what it's like on the other side. That's what I'm saying. Therefore, we decide, when we're talking about thoughts, we decide who we are and the type of influence we have with others, one thought at a time. But once we start talking, the thoughts are no longer thoughts, they're actions. They've materialized into a choice, like I talked about last episode with you. We are interpreting our thoughts for others through spoken words and actions. That's what we're doing. When we say something or do something, we're interpreting our thoughts. We're helping other people understand our thoughts by making them visible. They can see them, they can hear them, or both. When speaking or acting, meaning taking action, something very significant has happened. We are attempting to lead or influence others intentionally through those actions. After speaking or acting, it's too late to decide if our influence will be positive or negative. That should have happened while we were still thinking. You with me? Our intention is established in our thoughts and revealed through our words and actions. You got to get ahead of those things before you reveal them to the world. If you want to become intentional about changing your mind, so your mind can automatically change your life. So once we turn our thoughts into words, they'll positively or negatively influence others. It's going to happen. It happens every day, all day, everywhere, with everybody. We can always pause and reflect in order to be sure the right words come out next time. But we cannot take them back once they are spoken. You already know this stuff. We can only influence the desired outcome by spending time intentionally thinking before we convert our thoughts into words and actions. That's why you got to pause a lot of times. In my book, Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, I got the pause button chapter in there. What we got to learn to do. Something happens, we got to pause, choose our response based on our values. And in this case, I'm assuming you want positive influence. You want positive circumstances. You want to be seen as a positive person to work with or be around. But I touched on it already, and I'm going to emphasize it here with a story. But there's something more influential than the words we speak when it comes to influencing others. It's our behavior. You already know this. It's just nothing new to you. What may be new to you is choosing your actions to a deeper level of understanding. But it's our behavior. What do people see us doing? How do people see us living? Most have heard the old saying, actions speak louder than words. A lot of people say that, but they don't understand it. Saying it don't mean you understand it. All you got to do is look at their life sometimes. People say, oh, actions speak louder than words. So do your actions. Your actions speak louder than your words. So to put it in the context, that quote in the context of my book, Defining Influence, actions influence more than words. Same thing, just a different context. Actions speak louder than words. Actions influence more than words. Same thing. So this story reminds me of a story I put in my book, Defining Influence. And I had this experience in 2013, and I've shared some of this before uh, on my podcast. But again, this is year 8, so I've been doing it a while. I don't know how long ago it might have been when I shared about it. But I was helping John Maxwell. Rhea and I both were, and 150 other people from around the world. We were helping John Maxwell make a difference in the country of Guatemala in June of 2013. It's been a while back. There, like I said, there was 150 others, or a total of all of us from all around the world. And together we all trained over 20,000 Guatemalan leaders in just 1 week. John was the ringleader of this whole national transformation movement, but we were all there to support him. We all paid our way, paid all of our expenses, paid our hotels, our airfare, our food. Actually, I think they may have given us food, but we had to pay for some of it. I know it wasn't everything, but basically we had to cover all our expenses to go there and support him, help other people. Those are actions, not words. We were there. We were doing it. We were putting our money where our mouth was, so to speak. Another example of this lesson. But that ain't a lesson I'm wanting to share with you. But John's mission was to initiate and lead the transformation of the entire country as they began to focus on becoming a principle-centered nation. And most of us could not speak Spanish. Quite a few people could, but most of us couldn't. I mean, I barely speak English. You with me? That's why I'm bilingual. I speak English and country at the same time. Neither one of them Spanish. You with me? Therefore, we had interpreters to help us conduct the training while we were there. So my interpreter at the time was a young lady named Bertha. She was 20 years old in college. So Bertha was talking with me before one of our training sessions. She'd obviously been reflecting on something I had said during our taxi ride to that training site. So I had provoked some thought. Remember, we can influence other people with our words and our actions. So Bertha looked at me and said, "I don't know if I want to be a role model, Mac." She was feeling some pressure from something that I was talking about. It's probably something related to exactly what I'm talking about here. That's why I put it in the book in chapter 3. But Bertha said, I don't know if I want to be a role model, Mac. I said, "Bertha, you already are." And she looked at me in a puzzled way, and she says, "I'm a role model?" Because, see, she thought a role model was something you get to choose to be. So I had to give her some education on how the world works. But she said, I'm a role model." So I continued on with her. I said, "You're already a role model because someone is always watching you. You may not know it, but someone is always watching. Same goes for you, whoever's listening to this podcast. And when someone is watching you, you have the potential to influence their thoughts." So she started to think about my words. And I paused and gave her a little time to think on it. She was just sitting there, and I could just see her. Her wheels were spinning. So once she kind of got that processed a little bit, and she was realizing what I was saying and thinking about it, self-talk, right? She was trying to decide, does she believe me or not? That's the other thing self-talk will do. You don't believe a word anyone says. You only believe what you tell yourself about what they say. That's why you got to be careful about that self-talk. But then I continued and I said, "Bertha, the real question you got to ask yourself is not, do I want to be a role model? But rather, what kind of role model do I want to be?" But that short conversation got her attention. My influence caused her to start thinking differently because it makes sense. It's common sense. Just like I'm talking to you right now. You understand this. It's easy to understand. Anybody can understand it. But are you always thinking about it, conscious of it? Like I always say, when you touch a life, you don't always feel it. I have the power to influence. You have the power to influence. Defining Influence, my book that I'm talking about right now, is all about the power of influence and helping others realize the ability they have inside to choose to be a powerful, positive person of influence. Our influence, positive or negative, comes from the inside, but guess what? It impacts the outside. Comes from the inside, but it impacts the outside. So I want to share with you, if you want to go look at some self-guided, do-it-yourself type development resources, go check out bluecollarleadership.com/implement. IMPLEMENT, implement. And you'll see some options there, low cost or no cost options to help you grow and develop yourself. A lot of good resources we have there. My favorite quote of all time, after 17 years of reading every day, here it is, from Abraham Maslow. If we're not modeling what we're teaching, then we are teaching something else. Because we're not teaching what we are teaching. Parents, bosses. However, we are always teaching what we are modeling, regardless of what we are teaching. Hopefully, we're in alignment and are modeling what we are teaching, but a lot of people are not. When they're not, what they're teaching don't matter. What they're modeling is what matters. Have you ever told someone else not to do something you do yourself, such as unhealthy eating, risk-taking, drinking alcohol, smoking, vaping, using profanity? When we are saying one thing and doing another, we are out of harmony. We're not being congruent, in other words. We're not walking the talk. It's very clear to others we're being two-faced. We're not modeling what we're teaching. That list of things I shared with you a minute ago. A lot of people who tell people not to do those things, they're doing them. I'm guilty of that in my past way of thinking. Years ago, I was a bad model. I've been focused a long time on becoming a good model. That's why I don't use profanity. That's why I don't drink alcohol. Hadn't done either one since 2012. How much real influence without force do you have? Should you have? How much real influence do you have without a title and a position and authority, just because of who you are as a person? Do you live a life in harmony with the words you speak and the beliefs you hold? If not, does it matter to you? Hopefully it does. You're still listening. Until it actually matters, you will never change it. And even because you say it matters, don't mean it matters. Saying it matters does not mean it matters. You must make specific choices to prove it matters. If your thoughts are the foundation of your choices and your choices lead to your results, how much time are you spending thinking intentionally? When's the last time you spent 10 minutes a day consistently, day after day, week after week, intentionally thinking about how to get from where you are to where you want to be? When have you done that for 90 days in a row? 60 days in a row? 30 days in a row? 7 days in a row? Have you done it intentionally for 10 minutes at all? Ever? I don't mean random thoughts while you have a minute or driving along the highway. When is the last time you went somewhere quiet and thought, who am I? Where am I? What are my circumstances? What do I want to change? What needs to change? How could life be better? What does it all mean? Why am I where I am in my life? How can I change my circumstances? This is significant questions I'm asking you to think about. No matter where you are, you will not get from there to where you want to be without influencing yourself and others. If you do not change, nothing will change. Think on purpose. Why do you want to influence yourself and others? And here's a big question I'll wrap up today's episode with. What is the intent behind your thoughts? Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.